So basically, we are starting this podcast today with a couple of my friends. I invited my husband to speak about the crisis of podcast, because majority of podcasts now, they are turning into quoting of science, and it feels like people don't trust their opinion anymore unless they find the scientific research attached to it. And we are challenging that, and I wanted to ask my husband to share from his experience, because my husband has like a profound career in AI, and he's been around the internet and the science and the AI for 15 years already. So I wanted him to kind of give us a little of his opinions, and our friends will also comment on that. Did it stop?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think. While I don't feel an expert, it's not like I watch every podcast. But I was reflecting on something that I saw recently. You know, when there were, I think, a podcast where two Stanford professors were talking about, about the topic. I think of communication, and in a way, it was really squeaky clean conversation, right? Because one is a professor, the other one has access to a lot of students, and the other one has access to research. And the main takeaway I had was that it was just so, in a way, so polished, but also it's an area where then you become, it becomes kind of accessible only to people who are at that level, right? Who like, if you're not a Stanford professor, like, can you even give an opinion? And I just realized that this just uses this like left brain research and all of that, and I was just reflecting, how do I feel about this? And I felt like it's becoming less and less impressive for me. And then I was sharing with my wife, like, especially right now, what AI is doing, the whole research phase just changed so much, right? In the past, if you had this mindset where you could go into topic research and there was a lot of values, actually. Unfortunately, computers can do it a lot faster, right? So then I'm thinking, okay, so where's the value? So what's valuable then? Right? Yeah. And what my wife is doing, so, with the friends, and like I think a lot of us are doing that, but we're just putting a finger on it now, is going the other way, not the rational information and logic based, but really going deep inside and just trusting that actually my intuition can provide me answers that are valuable.
Intuition is good, right? But sometimes there's the scientific aspect of it, and then as well there's the spiritual aspect of it, to know what is right and what is wrong, So the spiritual aspect of it and more, it is said, how do you know the truth? How do you test the truth? What is truth?
Yes.
Right? And according to the spiritual aspect, you test the truth by your question. How you know your question is valid? Test the truth by guru, sadu, and shastra. They would all be aligning. Guru is the spiritual teacher, the sadhu is the saintly person, and shastra is the scriptures, the spiritual scriptures. If your question is authentic, then all these should be in alignment. Of course, Arjuna is going to tell more about the heart aspect of it, but in alignment of the spiritual aspect of it, this is how you know what is truth,
Would you say then that, I feel like when people used to talk earlier, than when they were more spiritual and religious, and they would be quoting, let's say, Bible or Quran or whatever, Bhagavad Gita, and now they simply, like, I feel like the science replaced religion, and the quotes became just logical. Like, not tied to truth, like the essence of truth, not tied to what correlates with human experience also, but just this, like, a lot of dry facts of study. And I actually question the audience of the study. You know, if you take 100% of people and you make a study, then you can actually get some sort of result that is objective. Otherwise, you know, the group of people that you are trying to test something on, it's always like you can make a mistake. And my husband was telling me how in their company they realized that, and they try to test 100% of population or the customers, and what kind of
no. Well, that's
outcome
I think it's a statistical
yes,
thing where if you want to measure everything, it's just so expensive that you will never do that. So then you'd start sampling, and when you're sampling, you know, like all of the samples, a lot of the studies that are being done, were you guys in those studies? Not really, right? But someone is making conclusion that whatever they found, that you would feel the same thing, which I would
almost like a generalization.
Which is speculation too, because they might say it's correct, but it's not really correct based on their scientific belief. And then 20 years down the line, they change their speculation based on different, different finds. They find it changed.
And I think I really want to hear what you say. I just want to just add one more thing, and then so given all of this body of research, all of these, and professors, and I, by the way, I respect all the hard work they've put into getting there. When I live my own life, like, how do I know what works for me? Like, if there was a research on relationships or on parenting or on career, if I read this, does that mean I automatically apply, or do I have some other way of measurement to see what works for me? And I'm just finding more and more, it's like I really can't be dependent on some people somewhere sitting in a lab, right? But then how do I build confidence myself to go with what's inside? And will that not be speculation? I can't just go by my feeling, right? So I guess that's it.
No, that all of you have made great points, and I'll just piggyback and start with everybody that's listening to this podcast interview. Even though we're speaking English, every individual is going to hear it a completely different way based on where they are in their life, their level of emotional intelligence, right? And how they just perceive things. We all have our own perception. So when you generalize through science and studies and facts, you've already missed the mark in one sense, right? Right? You already missed the mark because he's having one experience in his relationships, his life as a father. I'm having my own, you're having your own, right? So one of the things that I've been studying, it's interesting, right before we all came together, is I'm studying grief. In 2019, through science, the statistics, there was over 16,000 violent murders, right? And then so someone can read this and say, oh, wow, and generalize and say, oh, it's because of the guns, the laws, the Fifth Amendment, or whatever, or is it the Second Amendment, where we're allowed to blame it on the guns. But we won't go any further and say, well, what about the individual, right? Who was that person who picked up that weapon? What were they going through psychologically, mentally, emotionally, or even spiritually? Do they even have a spiritual practice? So for me, the way I see a lot of this is we've pushed ourselves in a direction that we don't have to actually talk and look at self. So science is easy. Right? Science is because there is facts. There are scientific facts that you can stand on. But also, what the science isn't doing, it's not really looking at the self. And as he was sharing about the different levels of the spiritual aspects, right? You look at self, that's a connection where you have to start looking at how you talk about God. What are your beliefs? What are your morals? What is your everyday life? What is your day-to-day? What's your internal conversation? And most of us have been trained and taught that our emotions aren't the safe zone. We keep them to ourselves. We push them down, we suppress them, because a lot of us haven't been taught. You don't see it in the homes anymore. So I'll close with saying, for me, what I've been really studying now, because of the area that I'm in my life right now around grief, traumatic grief, is that I can look at all the research I can also generalize myself and just say, hey, it's easier to just put myself in a box. And then I don't have to deal with my grief. But the grief doesn't go away. Right? There's no way around it. So I have to confront. The only way I can confront is I have to question myself. I have to question the way I'm thinking. What am I doing? What are my behaviors? All these things. And dealing with those type of emotions, it's not easy. It's a challenge. And so I feel society has found, air quotes, a safer way to get around dealing with the self and really looking at the self and being honest with what's there. You know, a lot of people will use the term, I try to avoid conflict, or I don't want problems, or I don't want to upset the other person. But the reality is like you have to, at some point, life is going to put you in a position where you have to face and deal with things that make us uncomfortable. And if we're talking about growth, sometimes science is used to see growth. Well, in order to grow, you have to be able to experience being uncomfortable. So that's my 2 cents of what I've experienced in my own journey, speaking for myself.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. That's a very kind input. You want to touch upon that?
No, I was just fascinated by the depth you shared. And to me then, at least where my head is at, is when I'm uncomfortable, what is my point of reference so that I can go through that uncomfortable, right? So that in a way, at least in my head, sometimes I'm going against many different opinions, you know? And like, how do I develop really the inner strength and path and whatever, maybe there's like, I don't even know if it's a technique to call it, to be strong, but even grounded too, you know? Because of my work, because I work so much like with technology, which is like, you know, zeros and ones, where things can be explained once you explain it, it works the same way every time. You know, life doesn't work that way, right? No. So that's why I'm blessed with my wife that goes into the intuition. But I want to go more and more. That my recent conclusion was that, you know, there's this high tech that we say, you know, and now it's a big revolution, however you want to call it. But to me, really high tech is the fact that there's a tree growing from a seed, right? That we can see through our eyes. Like, this is high tech, and then the emotions and the. So I guess me, what's of value is really getting more understanding of what you described.
Yeah, and I do think that naturally we seek for guidance, and either it's science or it's a religious practice or spirituality. I feel like all of this has to be applied like very personally, time, place, and circumstance. But also, what I realized is that any seeker of truth stops being seeker of truth when he fixates and stagnates on a certain message that was given with by the original mentor. You know, we have so many spiritual leaders and they pass away then, and we take their words and we make them static, and we lose the sense of trying to sieve it through the inner self and through our intuition to know how to apply it. And sometimes we are taught not even to trust how to apply it. Yeah. You know, and we sometimes even I've noticed even from my friends that they say, you know, I asked this question when we had this meeting with a spiritual person, and I asked about intuition, and they told me, you don't know what it is. You know, so I feel like that is the only tool that can help us to apply the guidance to what it is personal, you know, to make it personal.
Because you can take science, right? You can take science, you can get the studies, but then also, like I said, each individual is going to perceive that scientific information according to where they are on their journey. So from the science, like if I'm studying something or I'm researching, I'll take the science for face value. But then there's also, to what you were saying, your point, how do I know? That's where the intuition and discernment comes in. You know, when you're on the journey, when you're out with your family, there are things that science can't tell you. If you go into an area where something may not feel comfortable, you have to protect your family. You have to make a decision. Do I take my family here or do we go the other way? Science can't give you that answer. That's intuition. That's discernment. That's but you have to be able to trust yourself, right? You can't get on the phone and do it and go into a group and say, hey, I'm here with my family right now in this moment. I need an answer. Should we go left or right?
Yeah.
At that point. So I feel like life will put you in a position where if you're open, if you're listening, you will have to learn how to use your intuition and discernment. You'll have to trust it. Sometimes, it depends. If you're someone solo on a journey, you don't have a partner, you're just living your life, you can get away with it longer. But if you become a householder, you have a family, you have to protect, you have to lead, it doesn't work like that. It puts you in that position a lot faster to figure out how to start listening to your intuition and trusting your instincts.
Yeah, because the flip side of intuition is speculation, right? Well, right?
Yes.
Because to your point, it's like, okay, so we all start, because the other extreme, right, is like, let's all start just going by our feeling.
That's why I say mental speculation is always there. We could perceive it to be right and perceive it to be wrong as based on your perspective, if it's right or wrong.
Or once.
But is it right or what? What is right and what is wrong? That's the question. But you think about it, your intuition, but then intuition can be put in a negative way. You have negative intuition and you have positive. How do you use your intuition?
Right.
That's why it goes back to the spiritual aspect of it. That's where we get the guidance, because the spirituality leads you on the good. There's good energy, there's bad energy, there's negative and positive. How do you know the difference? The good one gives you good feeling, the bad one does not. It's simple like that,
Eventually, probably. Yeah, eventually.
I would say to this, long-term, yes, and then to me there's some immediate. I'll need to make 17 different decisions, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, even if I tried calling my mentors, they just there's no way they can answer, and they'll probably stop being my mentors if I ask 17, right? So at a certain point, there's an element where everyone's for themselves, and then you see guidance outside, right? So to me, this is the practical way of going deep beyond the logical, because to me, in a way, the guidance of, the need for asking guidance all the time to check yourself in can also be seen as a structure that I can get stuck in. For example, I need to make a big decision, but how do I align with Guru, Sadu, and Shastra? I'm not aligned yet, so I'll not make a decision.
You'll have to risk. You know what I realized? That
you see the tension?
Because we are afraid, we make all the knowledge and guidance stiff. So, like, for example, if this is only good and this is only bad, then I'm safe. I don't need to risk. But actually, if you really want to grow personally, like an individual, like a spiritual being, you'll have to risk.
You must take risks.
And you cannot then be fanatical about anything. Because whenever you become fanatical, it means you want to stay safe without taking any responsibility for your life.
Yeah. And to the point that you were making in terms of the mental speculation. Right. Well, I was raised, that my mom always said you seek God, Krishna, in everything, in all things. And one of the things that I've learned, like you were saying, in terms of there's a positive, you can have the positive aspect on your intuition, and you can have the negative aspect. It's really, for me, I just check in, like, where is it coming from? What am I listening? What am I actually listening to? But if you look back, if you just do research, science again, everything that we're talking about, these conversations have been here from time immemorial, like generations and generations and generations of people trying to figure out the mind, the science of the mind. Nobody really has it understood, right? No one really has it understood on this material platform that I've seen.
Except if you take it from scriptures.
Right.
Then you would understand it, and then you'll add it up and realize that it makes sense.
And the only way to do that, though, right, is you have to apply it.
Yeah.
One thing, because you can read it all day.
Yeah, of course.
But if we're not, but if there's no application, so that where the risk comes back too. You have to take the risk to apply it, to try it out. Hey, Krishna gave me this realization. Don't jump in that water because there's alligators. I didn't listen. I jump in and there's an alligator. No, I have this experience, so now I get to question myself next time.
And is your faith increasing when you got bitten by alligators? Did your faith increase that Krishna was right?
oh, you want to listen? Yeah, you'll listen more
Yes.
now you'll trust this intuition.
And I think that's the process of growth in a way.
Yeah.
Right? But that's rebellious.
In a sense, it can be looked at that, but
Right.
and that's perspective. That's all. It's subjective, right? That's subjective because one person can say that's rebellion. That one person can say that's foolish. Another can say, hey, well, how else would you learn? How else will you know? Now, do you have to take the extreme route every time? No. That's what I've learned from taking the risk, is that I don't have to continue to take the extreme route every time.
Take calculated risk.
Yeah.
Right?
Calcul-
So there's so many layers. There's so many nuances. There's so many layers to this conversation. But it's a beautiful conversation.
Yeah. But the flip side of it, I feel like it's very easy to become like a blind follower. It's easy to like take science or scripture by its face value and just say, okay, I'm just gonna just do everything just like this. But you cannot have like 6 billion lives lived the same way.
Yeah.
You see, your inquiry got to be from the heart.
Yeah.
You know, and if your inquisition is from the heart, then automatically the universe
Yes.
and God is gonna make everything in such a way where it would direct you
Yeah.
to someone who may teach you,
Yeah.
which may be a guru,
Yeah.
right? And in this way, if your sincerity is clean and proper, then it automatically opens that path
Yeah.
to bring this person into your life.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
I like that.
But that's a living, like it's
To
a
me, that's
living way to experience truth, not like a robotic.
Yeah.
It's like it corresponds to your heart, so it's variable to each individual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we do have to keep in mind that I've been this person, so I'll speak for myself. I'm not going to generalize, where we choose what spiritual texts to apply and the ones that we avoid. Right? There's some that we avoid because we don't want to address that within ourselves. So you hear it all the time where someone will read a certain purport and this speaks to
I
me.
like it.
Yeah, I can do this one. And then there's two more that come right behind it, and it's like, we'll get
I
to
don't
that.
like it.
Exactly.
So-
exactly.
So that
we-
is the
yeah.
mind. I feel like the difference between intuition and mind, that the mind is meant for you to like or dislike. Yeah.
It's just loud.
Yeah, we do.
Switch that
Yeah.
off, bro.
Intuition.
I think it's a natural end to our podcast. Thank you very much, everybody. Your input was very valid. Thank you very much.